People who have faith in the shroud as the burial cloth of Christ, but don't understand or don't know the science, when they get to know it and learn it, have more respect for the cloth because of that. Science truly followed and faith well followed blend to form the truth, and the truth is on that cloth.
One possibility, of course, is that we have some unknown man who was scourged, crucified, stabbed with a lance, crowned with thorns, who spent less than 3 days within his burial shroud and bears his image in such a way that it cannot be recreated with all the technology that exists today. Or perhaps, just perhaps, it may be Jesus the Christ.
This is your salvation. This is love in action.
Welcome to the Sowing Hope podcast. This is a show all about implanting hope in our hearts. I'm Bill Snyder, joined by my friend Ann DeSantis. We're glad you're here for our uplifting conversation about faith and how it sustains our hearts through all the seasons of life. Thanks for walking with us. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sowing Hope. I am Bill Snyder. It is wonderful to be with you. Thank you so much for joining us today on this Easter season episode of Sowing Hope. We're so blessed that you are here to be with us. And don't forget to check out our website, patchworkheart.org, for more information about our ministries. But I don't want to spend too much time talking about ourselves because I'm joined, as always, by my good friend and co-host, Ann DeSantis. And we have a guest today, Ann. So it's exciting. Let's jump right in.
Yes, Bill, it is wonderful to be here on Sowing Hope again, and with our wonderful guest, Sara Deacon. And she does adulting coaching for specifically for adults. And her website is saradeacon.com. And so, Sara, we just want to thank you so much for joining us on the show. And I just want to start out by saying, tell us about you and how did you get involved in what you're doing?
Thanks, Ann and Bill. It's great to be here. Yes, I'm Sara Deacon, the adulting coach. How did I get into it? This is a long and winding road. But essentially what I do is I work with teenagers and young adults, and I help them figure out for themselves who they want to be when they grow up. And my road probably started when I was that age, 17, 18, 19, 20, 25, 30, trying to figure out who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do, what I'm passionate about, and what where my education was going to take me. Because when I was young, and I don't know that it's changed all that much, but when I was young, it was the next step after high school with college. That's just what you did, whether you knew what you were going to do after college or not. So I spent 4 years in college trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was an English major who did not want to teach. So it was an interesting path. And as I managed to find my way over, we won't say how many years, I realized that I could help young people, especially now, especially post-COVID, when they are searching and they are feeling lost and they are feeling overwhelmed and anxious and just needing as much guidance and mentorship and grown people pouring into them as they can get. And I realized there was such a gap with that kind of support, especially post-high school and into college. Some colleges have a lot of services that they offer, but some kids don't know about them, or they're hesitant to reach out for support from a school counselor or from a teacher, or God forbid, their parents. So that's kind of the really short version of how I came to do this. I've had other businesses of my own. I am a part-time martial arts instructor. I have received a lot of great mentoring and coaching, and just I'm wanting to give back and serve and help support these kids.
Yeah, Sarah,
Yeah.
when we met, it was over a networking meeting in our small business Milwaukee group, and I just found it so fascinating because, what you're really doing is trying to build up young people and help them, find a path. And that's our ministry in a nutshell, really. And even with Anne's ministry and, dealing with people in crisis, it's like this is such at the heart of helping people become, the best version of themselves, right? And so I just found it so fascinating. I was like, man, I have to talk with you. I have to have you on our podcast because you're doing such wonderful work. And I wonder, if you maybe tell us a little bit about, um, you know, some of the different ways that young people are struggling that you see, and how you're helping them along. Obviously, you don't want to breach any confidentiality, but just in general,
Right.
talk to us a little bit about that.
I could tell a couple of stories, but the one thing you said was, I think it was about Anne's ministry helping the people who are not getting the support they need, or the ones who are really struggling or having a hard time. And there's there's people out there who look like they have it all together. They're very successful, high achieving. Maybe they're great at athletics. So like, I really do enjoy working with the young leaders, the high achievers, the star athletes, the performers who look from the outside like they've got it all together, but underneath there still is this simmering anxiety, and it's a lot of pressure they're putting on themselves. Some of it coming from outside, maybe parents, teachers, coaches, or social media. Let's be real. They've got a lot of outside pressure on them, but they also have a lot of pressure on themselves. Even if they have parents who are like, no, you don't have to do the thing. They're like, no, I have to do the thing and I have to do it the best. So that's something that I do see a lot, is that especially students who are used to getting accolades and awards and the A's and the high test scores, they leave school, or they're getting ready to leave school and get into the world, and they're not going to have that external validation. So that terrifies them.
Mm.
And what I find really, really powerful and empowering, and as a martial artist and as a Christian, it is not the external validation that matters. If we none of that matters if we don't know who we are and whose we are and why we're here on this planet. So that's how I approach it. And again, every individual needs a little something different. But I can say that in the conversations that I have with young people, it's just really beautiful to see them start to wake up to the power that's inside them, to that fire that they have to make a big change in the world, make an impact on somebody else's lives, to serve their community, or to lead in such a way that only they can. When they start to see that, it's a powerful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And I'm just in the last person you'd expect to be an inspiration or change the world. When I talk to some of these kids, they're like, well, I got nothing going on for me. I'm not, there's nothing, I have no real prospects or real future. But as I can talk with them and start to get them to see some of their unique gifts, and what they're interested in is actually developing them in their mind, body, spirit, to go into the world as a strong person, as a confident leader, that they didn't see themselves, but somebody else, just me, a stranger, sometimes can see that there is this spark in them, and they are uniquely gifted to do what they're meant to do in the world. That is a powerful, powerful thing when they can start to see it for themselves.
So beautiful. You have a great website too, I have to say. And thank you for expressing yourself so well on what you do, because it's so needed. And there's people who go through their entire lives, older people, like maybe my age or whatever, and not really still sure of themselves. So it's great
Right.
that you're doing this coaching to help people to find that direction. And like you said, you are a believer. You're a person who, you're a Christian yourself, and your worldview is such too. So
Mhm.
you're guiding people, knowing that they have God's purpose in mind, right? And so tell us, somebody's watching this, and maybe it's somebody who could be a potential client for you.
Yeah.
What would be sort of those initial steps that they would take? Like they would contact you, and then what would happen next?
What happens next is we have what I call a adult successfully strategy session. So this is a really high value call that we spend up to an hour together and really start to, so that I can understand what is the struggle, like the top of mind struggle for their young person. Sometimes it's balancing all the things, sports, school, work. Sometimes it's, well, I'm about to graduate and I don't know what I'm going to do next. Sometimes it's, I had a year of college and dropped out and I don't know what to do. And if I don't make a decision now, it's going to be the end of the world. So we will have a conversation. I ask, a few questions and I listen. And if it sounds like they really could use some of the support that I offer, which, let's be real, most people can use, like, even like you said, people our age. I believe wholeheartedly in coaching, and I think that it's a really, really powerful thing. And if I make the invitation, I'll make the invitation to work with me. I have a one-on-one program that's a 90-day program called Craft Your Path. And through the course of our work together, what happens is it's not a, I tell you and lay out your course for you. It's a, let's figure out what will work for you and what you love and what you're passionate about and what you value, and how to apply those things as a lens to make decisions for your life. So that when the plans ultimately go off the rails, because as we know, older, us older people, we know the plans don't always go according to plan. So my job is to equip and empower you to adjust when necessary and with confidence, knowing that whatever choice you will need to make can still align with your purpose, your values, your passions in life.
Mm.
And that's so beautiful. Again, I I really like listening to you because I think there's so many young adults out there, and our ministry really tries to work with young adults that are just walking around like zombies, like they're clueless, like what do I do next? And if you're listening to this, here's a great resource, right? This is a great resource for you to tap into, and reach out to Sara, um, so that, and we'll put your website, in the notes and everything on the bottom of the
Right.
screen. But Sara Deacon, right? Sara Deacon, Sara Deacon @.com. But you're doing such wonderful work, just really, again, pulling out what I hear is you're pulling out the gifts and walking and mentoring alongside the person. And but it's also not a dictation, because I think a lot of young people maybe talk to that, like there's so much um pressure that comes down. You've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to have this, you've
Right.
got to have that. And that's what the world says, but that's not what the
Right.
heart says. And so I just hear you drawing out the heart of the young person. That's so gorgeous.
They don't need another grown up telling them what to do. They don't. They don't need that. They need somebody who can hold the space for them to open up and explore who they are, so that they can build and grow the confidence to try new things, to build new skills, and the space to practice some of that.
Yeah. And I'm curious, do you walk with parents too, like especially if got a young college kid, a young high school kid that's coming to you? Do you offer like a kind of a package with the parents to kind of help coach both of them together alongside? Because
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely when I work with minors, the parents are always involved. There's sponsor calls and regular check-ins with the parents, especially when someone is under 18, or if the parent obviously is maybe investing in the coaching for their son or daughter. But yeah, I am very flexible, and I feel like if the student, the young person, if you're learning new things, but your parents are staying stuck in their old patterns, it's going to be that much harder for the young person, the child to really get momentum with it when there's resistance on the part of the parent. So I do really appreciate and invite collaboration with the whole family, siblings even. It's, there's definitely ways to work with the family and I will provide resources and tools for the family, even if they don't receive coaching directly. So.
Wonderful resources. Now, I also know you do speaking engagements too. I thought we could talk about that. How does that work? Like, who do you do your engagements for? And anything that you can share so that our audience can get more information on that.
Well, I am a big advocate of balance and teaching my clients how to say no, but I don't say no to a speaking engagement. In other areas, I practice what I preach, but I am really getting started with this speaking. So I invite anyone who would, who thinks their group could benefit from talking about things like how to create your own identity and make empowered decisions and have the courage to suck at something new, or things like those messages, to invite me to talk to your group, because I love speaking to groups in person and virtual. I've spoken to career seeking groups and school student groups. I'm looking to connect with the Distinguished Young Women of Wisconsin. That's a scholarship pageant for juniors in high school in our area. So they are, talking with me about potentially bringing me in for doing some sort of workshops on passion, purpose, that kind of thing. So I love working with groups, and the more people who can learn from the value of my message, and which again, it's not a new message, it's not my message, it's what we all need to hear. And if they can hear it from me in a way that helps them grow and take ownership of their own lives, then I am all for it, and we will find a way to make it work.
Awesome.
Wow, that's great. Could you share a little bit with us, and it doesn't have to be much detail, but some of those success stories of people that you've worked with, what type of benefits you've seen that they've gotten from working with you, and maybe their families?
I have my favorite story. It was a young man who we were talking, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying before. When we first started talking together, his shoulders were hunched over. My lighting's going to get weird, but like shoulders hunched over, like head down, hair in his eyes, like barely making eye contact. And he was one of these students who's like, nah, I'm not really interested in anything. Okay, well, do you like any of your classes? Not really right now. Do you like any classes that you've had any time in the past in school? Well, no, not really. So again, this young man, very convinced that he did not have anything to offer really, or that he was going to go nowhere. Or maybe somebody had told him he's, wasting time on whatever it was he was doing. And as we discussed this, and I kept asking questions and kept talking, I got out of him that he actually enjoyed playing Dungeons and Dragons with his friends. So that got me so excited, because I was a role-playing game person in school with my friends. That's how I met some of my best friends in high school. And I shared with him how what he's doing is actually developing in him collaboration skills, leadership skills, creative problem solving, psychology, all sorts of different, like, I don't know, soft skills or that kind of thing, where it started to give him this language of like, oh, this isn't just a waste of time. It's not just something that's silly or stupid. It's interesting me because it's giving me something that's going to move me forward, or that's going to grow my abilities and grow my skills. So he, after we're talking, he's, the shoulders come up a little bit more, the eye contact's more, he's repeating back to me like, okay, so I'm learning psychology and leadership skills and collaboration. Oh, okay. So that's something that then he can go forward, and if mom or dad is saying, oh, that's such a waste of time, he's like, no, that's leadership development. That's interpersonal skills. That's interview skills. That's creative problem solving. That's all these things. So that can be true whether it's video games or whether it's a role-playing game like D&D, or whether it's, whatever they're doing, playing with apps on the phones, or just hanging out with friends in whatever way they're doing, whether it's a sport or other activity. There's those windows in to that, that if they can start to connect the dots with what they love to do with the adulting skills that apply, they start to see that, oh, I'm going to be okay when I go out into the world. When they think that maybe they're not, because they don't see the connections.
That's a good example. I know we're kind of headed toward the end of the show, but I wanted definitely, before we ended, if it's okay, explain to us, is it in person that you do, or is it both? Do you do online and in person? How does that work for the coaching itself?
My coaching is generally virtual, either on
Okay.
Zoom or over the phone. Some people don't like to be looked at when they're coached, and that's okay. Like, I don't want to make it more uncomfortable than it already is to talk to someone that you barely know about the deep parts of your life. So I meet people where they are, and generally it's online, so I can work with anybody, as long as our time zones align. I can work with you virtually, or and in the Milwaukee area, we could get together for coffee if you want to, but I don't actually have an office where people come. So it's pretty much all virtual.
That's awesome. And so, yeah, it opens it up to anybody really across the country. That, again, you got to get the time zones all lined up, which Ann and I are,
It's hard to talk to people in Australia.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be honest.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know. I've done some work with people in Australia. It's like, hey, okay, it's 2 a.m. right now.
Right.
Yeah,
It gets
it's a
tricky.
little hard. But no, here in the U.S., I mean, that's wonderful. The virtual option opens so many different doors for people. And Sarah, this has been awesome to have you on Sowing Hope, and really we see all the hope that you're giving young people, and that's really what this is about. You're giving hope to young people. You're sowing hope into those hearts. It says, hey, when I go out in the world, I'm not going to be terrified, right? And I love that story.
You might be terrified, but you have to go out into the world anyway. And it can still be fun, even if it's scary.
Yeah, there you go. You take it from that's why she's the coach, folks, and not me. But it's awesome. I love that Dungeon and Dragon story. And I know how big D&D here in
well, the movie just came out, so
right. Yeah, and it's big.
It was really good, by the way.
Oh, awesome! I'll have to go check it out. Well, this has been so much fun. So thank you, Sarah. Before you go, though, please make sure you give website, email, all that stuff. How can people contact you? How can people get in touch with you?
Sure. Well, the social stalking is big, so you can follow me on the social media at Sara Deacon Coach, SaraDeacon Coach. That's on all the places: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, I don't know, YouTube, wherever else I am. So I'm all over social at Sara Deacon Coach. That's a great way to just kind of get to know me a little bit better. And you can find me at my website, saradeacon.com. Again, no H in Sarah. And then email is just my first name, Sarah, at saradeacon.com.
Awesome.
Sarah, thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, folks, we wish you a continued blessings during this Easter season, and we will be back with you, I'm certain, during the Easter season as well here on the Sowing Hope podcast. So thanks so much for tuning in today, and don't forget, keep beating to those Catholic hearts.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Sowing Hope on Patchwork Heart Radio. For more information about this podcast and our ministries, visit our websites, patchworkheart.org and andesantis.com. You can also follow and interact with us on Twitter at PWH Ministry or Andy Santis 2.
People who have faith in the shroud as the burial cloth of Christ, but don't understand or don't know the science, when they get to know it and learn it, have more respect for the cloth because of that. Science truly followed and faith well followed blend to form the truth, and the truth is on that cloth.
One possibility, of course, is that we have some unknown man who was scourged, crucified, stabbed with a lance, crowned with thorns, who spent less than 3 days within his burial shroud and bears his image in such a way that it cannot be recreated with all the technology that exists today. Or perhaps, just perhaps, it may be Jesus the Christ.
This is your salvation. This is love in action.